Hey everybody, what's good? It's Professor Khalil Amani here, and this is Khalil Amani's World 100. We're still on our Sodom and Gomorrah series. We're going to, I believe, part 15 next. But I took a pause from the calls to deal with this video right here. That's right. After these two videos, I'm going to go back to Sodom and Gomorrah. But what I want to do right here, because I feel like doing it, I feel like chasing Israel Doctrine's Hebrew Israelite conversation. See, I can do that. I can chase people's conversation when they are out of order. Now, bitch niggas like Israel Doctrine, they want me to come on their panel, take the link, come up and be a man and, deal with them face to face on his grounds, in his backyard, on his platform, where he has all the power to shut me down, stifle me, mute me, kick me off the show. No, nigga, we don't have to do that. I got my own platform and I can say what I want to say on this platform. See, Israel Doctrine, he believes in face-to-face, mano a mano, baddest man hit my hand, face me on camera, let's debate it, come on my panel, let's argue together. That's what he believes in. I simply don't. Because I don't care enough to do shit like that. I simply use my platform, my channel, to refute and dispute what he says. And that's it. There's no need for me to debate Israel Doctrine. There's no need to have a war of words with Israel Doctrine face to face. There's no need to subject myself to his channel as though he's in power, and if anything, he should come on my channel. I get more views than that nigga. I have 228 subscribers. He has 5,400 subscribers, but I get more views than Israel Doctrine. But I'm just not one to want to go and argue back and forth. That's why when I go on Sonetter's channel, I don't go on his channel to debate. When you see me on Sonetter's, I'm doing a one-on-one with Sonetter, and then that's the end of the show, and I go home. I don't believe in arguing with niggas on YouTube. I don't believe in debating niggas on YouTube. Everybody has their own platforms, and they can speak their speech and do what they want. So when Israel Doctrine says, I'm afraid to come on this platform, that's all that ghettoized nigga shit to try to check my manhood, all that stupid shit. But I'm too old for that. Nigga, I'm 65 years old. Save those psychological games for those young niggas with egos. So when you call them out or call out their manhood, they want to prove that they're a man. So they jump on your platform because you call their manhood into question. I'm not one of those niggas. If Israel Doctrine doesn't see my manhood or see me as a man, then fine. I'm not here to convince Israel Doctrine that I'm a man. Everything about my life screams I'm a man. First and foremost, being responsible, having a family, having a wife, children, grandchildren, career, retirement, job, cars, scooters, travel, vacation, taking care of family, pension plan, retirement plan. Everything about my life says I'm a man. Wrote 6 books. Everything about my life says I'm a man. I don't have to go. And YouTube is not the litmus test for my manhood. It's just not. YouTube is the litmus test for Israel Doctrine and manhood. And that's a sad commentary on what Israel doctrine thinks a man is. Somebody who must come on and confront you face to face on their terms, on their channel. That ain't no man. That's some bullshit. But anyway, let's go ahead. I want to do a 2-part series. It's going to be 2 videos, y'all. It's going to be 2 videos. The first video we're going to do, the subject is Hebrew Israelites. I mean, this dude, Israel Doctrine, he's got a hard-on for this discussion. He thinks he is the man that's going to change the whole Hebrew Israelite movement and make them drop the Hebrew from the Israelites. He thinks he can single-handedly do it. And he's mad as a wolf that nobody really is fucking with him on that conversation. And after all the years he's been telling people that we are not Hebrew Israelites, we are simply Israelites, he just seemed to can't get anybody to hear him, to understand him, and to carry on the message that we are in fact Israelites and not Hebrew Israelites. So what I want to do is, again, I'm going to do a 2-part series, just 2 parts. The first part will be why it's okay to call yourself a Hebrew Israelite, the pro-Hebrew Israelite part. The second part, which I'll do a day from now, will be why we should call ourselves Israelite only. You see, the problem for Israel doctrine is that he's not an effective communicator, and this is why his message simply gets lost in the sauce. He's a Bible bully. He's an information bully. He doesn't know how to disseminate the information in a kind and gentle way. He's going to do it his way, not God's way, not the way of the elders, but his way. And his way is to come on and try to cram this so-called Israelite only shit down your throat. Not gentle, not soft, not spoon-fed. He wants you to swallow the whole steak and you ain't even got no teeth to swallow it, to chew it. His methodology is all wrong. And you can't tell him any different. His methodology is so ass backwards that he thinks cursing at people, disrespecting people, calling them stupid and ignorant and bitches and bastards, while trying to teach that we should only call ourselves Israelites, that people are going to hear that message. And so he's been laboring in obscurity probably 8, 9 years, 10 years with this same message. Yet who amongst us, who amongst the YouTube community can Israel Doctrine actually say that he effectively communicated the difference between Hebrew Israelite and Israelite, and they believed him? What person of note can we look to on YouTube wherein Carl Albert Davis, aka Pissy, aka Israel Doctrine, effectively changed their position from Hebrew Israelite to Israelite? It's the power of not one person. Not one person. I said not one person. Not even that raggedy mouth, trout mouth, fake ass YouTube streets queen, child abusing ex-prostitute that used to sit on his channel daily and lie. Not even she believes the Israelite only theology. Oh yeah. And so let's start there. Let's start with the root of this fuck nigga's frustrations. Israel Doctrine is thoroughly frustrated. Over there on Facebook, fucking with Hebrew Israelites from the Israel of God church. Leave them people alone, my nigga. You were once a part of Brother Bowie's the Israel of God, and you didn't like what you heard, and you didn't like what they were teaching, that they were Hebrew Israelites. Leave them alone. But this bitch nigga Israel doctrine, or should I say struggle doctrine, because everything he's been doing lately, if he's not talking about Khalil Amani, that bitch nigga is struggling for content. If his so-called Raggedy Mouth Queen is not on his channel, that nigga's content is struggling. He's struggling for relevancy. He's struggling for an audience. He's struggling to be heard. And he's super frustrated. Not even the bitch that he calls his queen believes his Israelite only conversation. Why do I say that? Because about 6 months ago, she went on his channel and told him to his face, even though he's supposed to be the teacher and she's the subordinate, the student went on his channel and told this bitch nigga to his face, you've been lying to the people all these years, because this bitch, the chop mouth queen, Gwinnetta Greer, she claims she saw the phrase Hebrew Israelite in the book of Revelation. And she went over on his channel to tell him that he was wrong. And that nigga has been butthurt beyond butthurt ever since that time. Even though the bitch knows by now that she was wrong as two left shoes for claiming that the phrase Hebrew Israelite was in the book of Revelation, she knows she's wrong now. You think she made a public apology to this bitch nigga? Nope. She's been church mouse quiet. She's been mum mouth. She's moved on to other shit as though she never said those things. Not even a video saying my bad. Not even a video saying, King, I misspoke. King, I was wrong. Although the bitch, Gwinnetta Greer, recently, like a day or so ago, said, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. When I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. Well, the worst thing you did, the biggest error you made was saying that there was Hebrew Israelites in the book of Revelation. And we never heard you apologize to that man, your king, Israel Doctrine, about it. Neither did you make a video ever saying, I guess I heard wrong. So you're lying. But ever since that day when this woman confronted Israel Doctrine to try to upend and destroy some 10 years of his doctrine of Israelite only, shit ain't been the same. Oh, those niggas have fallen out. They've fallen out. They on camera now sparingly, sparingly once every 2 weeks or so, But we can trace it back to that exact conversation wherein Gwinnetta Greer, the so-called truth seeker, which he's nothing but a lie seeker, came on his channel to tell him that he was wrong about the phrase Hebrew Israelite. That in fact and indeed she saw and she read Hebrew Israelite in the book of Revelation. I'm gonna let you hear the conversation. We're gonna start out with that conversation. A lot of you all have heard it, but if you didn't hear it. But my point is, Israel Doctrine can't seem to make anybody believe that they should say Israelite only and leave the Hebrew off of it. So what I'm going to do is a two-part series. Again, the first part will be pro-Hebrew Israelite. Why it's okay to call oneself a Hebrew Israelite. And the second part will be why it's not okay to call oneself a Hebrew Israelite. Why Israelite is a more proper term. But let's start out with the shit that hurt Israel doctrine to his heart. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine one of your students, somebody that you call yourself teaching, backstabs you one day out of the blue, just comes up on your channel in the middle of your live and calls you a motherfucking liar around the way? Oh, she don't come out and say, oh, Israel doctrine, you're a liar. She does it by telling him that his years of conversation claiming that we should only call ourselves Israelite, that was all a lie. Because she, not Khalil Amani, not Captain Desariac, not Guerrilla Hebrew, not Yahweh ben Yahweh, not General Yohanna, not Bishop Nathaniel, not no Hebrew Israelite Bible teacher has been able to find and uncover what Gwinnetta Greer claims she found and uncovered. No Hebrew Israelite in the history of the Hebrew Israelite movement will say that those two words, Hebrew and Israelite, are in the Bible together, side by side, next to one another. Nobody says it. But a woman who's don't know shit about the Bible, calling the scriptures simply the script, she found it. She found what none of us Bible folks and Bible teachers have ever been able to find. So listen to her as she tells Israel doctrine basically that his conversation and teaching that we should only say Israelite and not say Hebrew Israelite. Listen as she tells him, you're wrong, nigga. I read it. I found the words Hebrew Israelite in the book of Revelations. Go ahead, Gwinnetta. Lie to us.
Queen, what's up, Israel? You said this person that was inside of your inbox was your queen. So your queen has been doing some reading. I went back and I went into Revelation, something that you keep always trying to run from. You don't ever want to do Revelation. That it does say Hebrew Israelite in Revelation. I was just as shocked and blown as you. And no, I'm not coming for you. I'm just telling you that it's there. That's all. Okay, humble me then. Humble me more. I've been proud. Humble me. Well, I'm not trying to humble you. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm not trying to dispute your words. I'm just telling you what I read for myself in the book of Revelation. That it does say Hebrew Israelites. What chapter, what verse? Now that I don't remember. Oh, Lord. That I don't remember. I'm not going to sit here and lie. Claims made with nothing to stand on. Why don't you go and read it? Read what? As a matter of fact, no. Hold on. As a matter of fact, what verse and you ain't got no chapters, no verse. Okay, okay. Can I finish talking? Because you never give me a chance to talk. For those who want to know what the fuck I'm talking about, go to Revelation and read the whole book. It's actually in the very beginning of it. It's not even far. Go and read it, and you will see. See, this is what I tell people. Don't listen to me. Don't believe me. Go read it for yourself. It's there. That's all I'm going to say. Now, that statement is a great statement. I love that statement. Go read it. But if you read it, there are chapters and verses that give people the exact location of what you read, and that's what you're supposed to do. If you read something, get the chapter and the verse and the location so you can direct the people to the proper place. True, but you know what happens when you do that? When a person ain't read the whole book or read everything, you ain't really getting a fully understanding just going by scripts. See, I went and tried to read the whole Revelation. I ain't just go by scripts. That's why I'm telling y'all to read it all, because it's going to make sense instead of just going by that chapter. No, that is good. I mean, I like it, but it's not going to do the bidding of God saying that it's in there, because I done read all the Revelation. It's not in there. Okay, Israel. It sure mysteriously was up in there 2 nights ago when I was reading it, and this was the King James Bible. This was not the other Bible. Like I told you, I'm not even going to say you a lie. All I'm saying is I done read all the Revelations and I never read it in there. All right, so can I ask you a question? Do you remember the part of Revelation when he was breaking down how I can't pronounce the word of these people? Because y'all know how to say these people names real. In the chapter verses. And I'm not just sitting here and say, as I was saying, it's a part in Revelation where God was talking about the Hebrew Israelites and the Israelites. He's talking about the Hebrew Israelites and the Israelites. He said it because I was like, it drew my attention. I was like, whoa, did he not just separate these two? Now you know you bearing witness on God. And this okay, now I'm bearing false witness. I just told you I seen it, Israel. I'm not up here lying.
Okay. And so, Israel Doctrine has been butthurt ever since this video you just heard. Now, Israel Doctrine, he goes hard in the paint against those Hebrews from the Israelite God and Brother Bowie. But did you notice how he tiptoed through the tulips with this bitch? Did you see how nice and gentle he handled her with kid gloves? This is how Israel Doctrine should be preaching and teaching his message of Israelite only. Oh, this bitch nigga has one face for Gwinnetta and another face for everybody else who uses the words Hebrew Israelite. Did you pick that up? Yeah. Facts upon facts. Every time she said that the phrase Hebrew Israelite was in Revelation, he said shit like, well, I like that. Well, I'm not going to call you a liar. But when he talks to the Israelite God, folks, you monkey ass niggas, you liars, you going to hell? Show me you ain't no man. Oh, he goes off on them. But when he was talking to this bitch, his so-called queen, knowing full well that she's lying her ass off, that the words Hebrew Israelite are nowhere mentioned in the book of Revelations, he didn't get upset. He didn't fly off the handle. He didn't say shit. He was very nice. Y'all heard him. When she would argue that you got to read the whole Bible to get a whole understanding. No, you got to read the whole book to understand. No, we are looking for the words Hebrew Israelite. It doesn't require you to read from Revelations 1 to Revelations 22 to pin down the two words Hebrew Israelite being in the book of Revelations. He told her correctly, all you got to do is show me the chapter and the verse. He was right. But he's such a simp and a wimp when it comes to that woman that he allowed her to do some oratorical masturbation and talk about having to read the whole book to find two words that are in one scripture. Got to read the whole thing to get the proper understanding. You don't need the whole damn book to see the two words Hebrew Israelite. She did some religious mumbo jumbo hoodoo and he fell for it. And all he could say was, well, I read the whole book. I read the whole book of Revelation and I'd never seen Hebrew Israelite. I ain't gonna call you a lie. That sounds good, sister. That sounds good what you said. But all we need is the chapter and the verse. I ain't gonna call you a lie. Now juxtapose how nice he was talking to her, knowing she's lying, to a conversation he had 5 hours ago. Listen to this shit from 5 hours ago. Listen as Israel Doctrine calls this preacher who's teaching that we're Hebrew Israelites. He's going to say it's some lying ass shit. See, when he talked to Gwinnetta and she said Hebrew Israelites was in the book of Revelation, he said, I ain't going to call you a lie. I ain't going to call you a lie. Do you want to hear it? Say it one more time, Israel Doctrine. Listen as Israel Doctrine placates and walks with this woman and treats her with kid gloves and says things like, that is good. She's claiming that the word Hebrew Israelites is in Revelation, and he's being gentle and soft and compassionate and telling her her conversation is good. Listen.
Oh, Revelation. I ain't just go by scripts. That's why I'm telling y'all to read it all, because it's going to make sense instead of just going by that chapter.
Now, that is good. I mean, I like it, but
see? She's claiming that Hebrew Israelites is in the book of Revelations, and he says that is good. I mean, I like it. He's treating her with kid gloves. He's tiptoeing through the tulips, talking to his bitch who's trying to undo his anti-Hebrew Israelite conversation. He's respectful than a motherfucker. He's respectful. And again, she's going to keep talking, and he's going to still treat her nicely and tell her, it's a great statement. I love it. Listen to this. They're talking about, she's telling him that he's wrong, and he's treating her very nice with his words.
It's not even far. Go and read it, and you will see. See, this is what I tell people. Don't listen to me. Don't believe me. Go read it for yourself. It's there. That's all I'm going to say.
now that statement is a great statement. I love that statement. Go.
See? He knows she's lying, but he's treating her with kid gloves. He's tiptoeing through the tulips about some shit that she don't know nothing about. Which shows that when Israel Doctrine wants to be compassionate, wants to be understanding, wants to be gentle with people, he can do that. And this is proof positive because he knows she is out of order, doesn't know what she's talking about, straight lying, yet he's not flying off the handle. He's complimenting her on her statements, saying he loves it and great statement. And in a minute, he's going to say, I ain't going to call you a lie. Let's hear that part. Now listen as he says, I ain't even going to say you a lie. I ain't even going to say you a lie. He's treating her with kid gloves. Listen to this.
Okay, Israel. It sure mysteriously was up in there 2 nights ago when I was reading it, and this was the King James Bible. This was not no other Bible.
Like I told you, I'm not even going to say you a lie.
See what I mean? He won't call this bitch a lie, even though he knows she's a lie and a liar, a talebearer and a fibber. She's wrong as 2 left shoes. So my point here, playing this audio, is to show you that Israel Doctrine, he can be nice to those he wants to be nice to. But when it comes to Brother Bowie and the Israel of God, he don't have that same low energy. He don't have that same low energy for the brothers as he has for Gwinnetta Greer. And so today on Facebook, he engaged them, and this is how he sounded.
What I'm reduced to do because niggas don't want to speak about it. Y'all listen to this lying ass shit and tell me if it's true. Because if you can't read Hebrew Israelite in the Bible one time You ain't no different than a motherfucker that say the rapture, the Trinity, and every other thing that you can't find in the Bible and come out here and lie to the people about it. You no different. You's a lying-ass Hebrew Israelite up in that lying-ass Mecca Hebrew Israelite church you got. Just were Hebrew Israelites. Peter and the apostle and all of them were original. What is it, Acts, Dre? Well, the apostle was called what? They were all Hebrew Israelites. What was they called Hebrew Israelite then? Why he ain't going to find that scripture? Because it ain't no scripture in the Bible that say that shit. And when you say that shit and it ain't in the Bible, you's a motherfucking lie. And you need to be corrected by somebody that call themselves in the church that love the Lord and love the word of God that much where they'll correct a fucking lie that's fucking big. That can destroy a whole congregation, a whole body, and everything else. But you motherfuckers think Enoch's still walking around. You fucking, man, I tell you, you motherfuckers make me sick, man. Then y'all act like motherfuckers be trying to act like they don't know who I am. They don't be seeing my friendship, this, that, and everything else with motherfuckers on shit.
Okay, you get the gist of it. He was nice and humble and meek talking to his bitch, his so-called queen, even telling her, I ain't gonna call you a lie. But then when he get with the brothers of Elder Bowie's, the Israel of God church, you motherfuckers, sons of bitches, you motherfuckers, lying ass bastards. He just said he got all kind of venom and vitriol for the brothers. He's disgusted at Brother Bowie's Israel of God church. But when his bitch came online on his channel and told him to his face in so many words that you're the liar, that in fact and indeed Hebrew Israelite is in the Bible, the book of Revelation, you handled that bitch with kid gloves. You didn't get that venom and vitriol. You weren't all high strung. You didn't have that same energy for Gwinnett Greer as you have for the brothers of the Israel of God church. I just want to make that comparison. I wanted you all to see how he tries to coddle that bitch. He should have slam dunked that bitch, Gwinnett Greer, when she came on telling that bold-faced lie that Hebrew Israelites was in the book of Revelation. He should have slam dunked her. And then he should have made the bitch do a public apology video. Don't let her off the hook. Oh, hell no. You came on my channel and you tried to high side. You tried to flex and floss and flow show. You tried to shit on me. You tried to shit on my doctrine of Israelite only. No, bitch, before we ever get back friends, before we ever get cool, I'm going to need you to acknowledge that you was wrong as fuck. I'm just saying, that's what he should have made Gwinnett Greer do. But they swept that shit under the rug. They swept it under the rug. Not even that nigga J. Mike Florida said, did you ever put a button on that Hebrew Israelite conversation? Queen, this is your hand talking. Did you ever put a button on that Israelite conversation you had with Big Bruh? Did you ever land your plane? Did you ever park your car? Did you ever realize that he was wrong or you was wrong? What was the conclusion of that conversation y'all had? Were you right or was he right? You niggas, you three niggas are the most dishonest motherfuckers I have ever seen in my life. You got a bitch over there that won't come clean and say, I was wrong. You got a nigga over there that allows her to say wrong shit, but he speaks very low and very proper and very respectful and tiptoes through the tulips. But then goes over to the brothers of the Israel of God and calls them all kind of motherfuckers and liars and bitches and bastards for saying the same shit that Gwinnett Greer, your bitch, said. but you got fire and brimstone for the brothers of the Israel of God. But I want to start out with that. Now let's get into why it's okay. Why is it okay that the brothers and sisters call themselves Hebrew Israelites? Now, Israel doctrine is correct when he says that the words Hebrew Israelite aren't in the Bible. Everybody knows that. I mean, except for maybe Gwinnett Greer. Everybody knows that. But the question on the side of calling oneself a Hebrew Israelite, what's so wrong with that? What is so wrong with saying you are a Hebrew Israelite? For Israel doctrine, claiming to be a Bible teacher, he doesn't even know how to articulate his position that makes sense. For Israel doctrine, his clapback, his retort, his biggest gaffe is simply asking the question, where is Hebrew Israelite in the Bible? And if you can't show me the phrase Hebrew Israelite in the Bible, then we cannot be Hebrew Israelites. That's his stance. He's right, but he's wrong. See, one thing I learned when I was in college, and I took communications, I took shitloads of English courses, and I took debate. In debate, it teaches you how to think on both sides of the argument. In debate, it makes you consider and reconsider your position and their position. And so Israel doctrine, he doesn't believe that we should call ourselves Hebrew Israelites simply and purely and strictly because you can't find those two words in the Bible together as a conjunction, hyphenated, side by side, word by word. And that honestly, that is a weak ass argument. It's a weak ass argument. As a matter of fact, Israel doctrine position is the weakest argument. It's the weakest argument ever. Basically, if you can't find it in the Bible, then it doesn't exist. Well, we can't find cars in the Bible, but they exist. We can't find airplanes in the Bible, but they exist. We can't find bicycles in the Bible, but they exist. We can't find toilets with running water and flushing commodes and toilets and urinals in the Bible, but they exist. We can't find electricity in the Bible, light switches, but these things exist. So it is a weak and corny ass argument that simply because you can't find two words side by side, then it cannot exist. Israel doctrine would go on and argue things like the Trinity. The Trinity does not exist because you can't find the word Trinity in the Bible. Another weak ass argument, because it's not about the actual word Trinity being in the Bible. It's about the methodology, the proscription, the theology, and the model. The model for Trinity is found in the Bible. And when you find a model that represents a certain idea, you give it a name. Bitch, nigga. I said Israel doctrine, he makes the weakest argument of all. If you can't find the words in the Bible, then it doesn't exist. That's a That's a kindergarten argument. That is a juvenile argument. Because you can't find Hebrew Israelite side by side, word to word, hyphenated, conjunctive, then the phrase doesn't exist. That is that is a preschool and kindergarten argument. There are a lot of words that aren't in the Bible, but the ideal and the model and the prescription is everywhere present. In my Sodom and Gomorrah series, I showed you the word hospitality in the Erdman's Bible Dictionary, in the Oxford Annotated Bible Dictionary, and in the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible. Hospitality. But the word hospitality also is not mentioned in the Bible. But the idea, the model, is everywhere present from Genesis up until the days of Jesus. And so when someone like Israel Doctrine simply holds his hat on the fact that you cannot find Hebrew Israelites word for word in the Bible, when you understand the conversation and the argument, you realize that that is a very juvenile argument that he makes. It's a very superficial, it's a very superfluous ideal that only holds weight among biblical literalists. If you are a biblical literalist where you got to see it to believe it, then you listen to niggas like Israel Doctrine. But when you can think outside the box and you can understand concepts and ideals, then you don't necessarily have to see the words that you're looking for in the Bible. Again, the word hospitality is nowhere written in the Bible, but in every biblical encyclopedia and Bible dictionary, there's an entry for a word that's not in the Bible, because the ideal is in there. The ideal of hospitality, the model of hospitality, the prescription of hospitality is everywhere written throughout the Bible. That's what you don't understand. Israel Doctrine's bullshit argument for not using the phrase Hebrew Israelite is for you dummies. It's for you superficial motherfuckers. It's for you biblical literalists. And going beyond that, whoever said that the Bible is the be-all, end-all, and if it ain't in the Bible, then we don't fuck with it. Whoever said that? And going beyond that, whoever said that the ancient Israelites, the ancient Levitical priests, those who wrote scripture, whoever said that what they wrote was the be-all, end-all, and the end of Revelation? Whoever said that the Old Testament prophets had the last say on how to dress, how to eat, how to live, what you should believe in? Whoever said that shit? Whoever said that a new people from a different era, a different age, could not create their own ideological understanding of themselves? Whoever said that we must only call ourselves by what Jacob, who became Israel, called himself? Whoever said that? Whoever said that we could not put Hebrew and Israelite together just because there's no one scripture that shows you that? Whoever said that shit? See, the problem for people like Israel Doctrine is that they damn near believe that the people in the Old Testament that laid all this shit out, it's all about them. It's all about their word. It's all about what they thought, what they believed. That's why you have a lot of Hebrew Israelites, not Israel doctrine per se, but a lot of Hebrew Israelites, they dress in the long robe and the fringes and the turbans and the shields. They wear the Star of David. They look like, rejects from the 1970s, the Village People. They look like some of those, anyway. They ascribe to themselves, some Hebrew Israelites, they ascribe to themselves the couture. They ascribe to themselves the accoutrement. That's the word I meant to say. They ascribe to themselves the accoutrement, i.e., the clothing and the fashion and the dress and the dress sensibilities of circa 1500 BCE, as though those people back in that day, they were the gods of fashion, they were the gods of dressing, and the way they dress is the way everybody should dress from here to eternity. At least Israel doctrine doesn't buy into that particular bullshit. Those people that lived in the days of Moses and Joshua and Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, they simply were dressing in the fashion of their day. There was nothing spiritual or holy or religious about the way they dressed. They dressed the way the people dressed of that time period. But you got Hebrew Israelites today that want to go back to dressing like circa 13 BCE to try to feel like they are part of those people back then. If you are a Hebrew Israelite and you really want to be in sync, you dress the way that your people dress in today. You dress like the people of your day dress, just like the people of that day dress like the people of that day. Am I getting too deep? But this ideal of being called Hebrew Israelite, there's nothing wrong with calling yourself a Hebrew Israelite. It is the ideal that matters. It is the model that matters. Calling oneself a Hebrew Israelite, simply saying, I acknowledge my roots, my genealogies, going back to Abraham, the father of many nations, and my other patriarchal father, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. That's all it's saying. It's acknowledging a lineage. This is the pro side of calling yourself a Hebrew Israelite. What Israel doctrine would like you to believe is that from the time of Abraham, who was the first Hebrew, down to his grandson, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, he would like you to think that from the time of Abraham up until this very moment, nobody back in that day ever had the novel ideal of saying, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. As far as Israel doctrine is concerned, putting those two words together is a 20th century invention. Maybe late 19th century, 1890s, those early Hebrew Israelite teachers. Israel doctrine would have you believe that from Abraham to Jesus, no Jew, no Israelite, or no Hebrew ever came up with the notion or the novel ideal in conversation to use Hebrew and Israelite together. When the reality is, that many so-called Jews, so-called Hebrews, and so-called Israelites most assuredly did say in conversation, yes, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Abraham is my eponymous ancestor, and Israel, who was Jacob, is my eponymous ancestor also. Israel doctrine would like us to believe that Nobody in antiquity had the novel idea of conjoining those two words. And because we have no proof in the Bible, he's going to stand on it. But the Apostle Paul, I know he don't like to hear this. I know this shit just rubs him the wrong way. When they bring up 1 Corinthians 11:22, it's like a dead hemorrhoid trying to escape from Israel doctrine's sphincter muscle. He doesn't like it. I said, when it comes to the reading of 1 Corinthians 11:22, that is just a thorn in Israel doctrine's side, because it brings the words Hebrew Israelite together in the same book, in the same chapter, and in the same verse. It is as close as we get to anybody in antiquity saying the phrase Hebrew Israelite. Let's just read it. Let's just read it. I said 2 Corinthians. My bad. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 22. Not 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. For it says, are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. And so we have in the same book, 2 Corinthians, in the same chapter 11, and in the same verse 22, we have Hebrews and Israelites in the same book, same chapter, same verse. That's pretty goddamn close, if you ask me. Hold on there. I said we find the words Hebrew and Israelite in the same book, 2 Corinthians, in the same chapter 11, and the same verse 22. But when you are a biblical literalist, you need to see these words side by side, Hebrew Israelite. But Paul says he's a Hebrew Israelite of the seed of Abraham in one verse. But people like Israel doctrine, they cannot accept that because it's not word for word. In their juvenile kindergarten, Mickey Mouse, Dr. Seuss understanding and reading, they must see the words side by side. 2 Corinthians 11:22 is proof positive. You bet your bippy, as they say in the 70s. You can bet your sweet bippy. I don't know what bippy mean, but there was a show called Laugh-In back in the 70s, and they used to say, you bet your sweet bippy. But you can bet your sweet bippy that if the Apostle Paul could use the word Hebrew and Israelite in the same sentence, you can best believe that Israelites and Hebrews were also using those words interchangeably and together. Don't you be so literal to think that nobody until the 20th century, no person in the world until the 20th century came up with the ideal of saying Hebrew Israelites. I'm sure Paul said Hebrew Israelite. I'm sure other so-called Jews back in antiquity said Hebrew Israelites. I'm sure everybody born after the patriarchal father Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, I'm sure from that time on, they were saying they were Israelites, they were saying they were Hebrews, and they were saying they were Hebrew Israelites. I'm sure they were throwing the phrases around interchangeably. But Israel doctrine would argue, show it to me in the Bible. Show it to me in the Bible. And I would argue, hospitality is not in the Bible, but the model, the exercise, the prescription, the ideal, the cultural relevancy is everywhere present, so much so, as I've shown in my Sodom and Gomorrah series, that all of the Bible interpreters, all of the Bible dictionaries, and all of the Bible encyclopedias have an entry for a word that's not in the Bible. So it destroys Israel doctrine's ideal that if you can't find it in the Bible, it doesn't exist. Did you hear what I said? Let me show you what I'm talking about. I said the way we destroy Israel doctrine's bullshit understanding is this. We do it like this. Here's a word, hospitality. This is the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible. It's an encyclopedia / dictionary on Bible commentary. By Israel doctrine's superficial and kindergarten understanding that if you don't see words like Hebrew Israelite in the Bible, then it's not real. If you don't see words like Trinity in the Bible, then it's not real. It's a bullshit, fake and false and pseudo teaching. And the proof is, here you have the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible with the entry like hospitality. And the truth of the matter is, just like Trinity is not in the Bible, just like the phrase Hebrew Israelite is not in the Bible, word for word, so it is. So it is with the word hospitality. You will not find the word hospitality in any of the 66 books of the Bible. But the model, the ideal, the understanding, the cultural relevancy and significance of the word hospitality was so important that in a Bible dictionary, you find an entry for a word that's not in the Bible. This is how you destroy people like Israel doctrine and his pseudo theology. Another Bible dictionary, the Oxford Companion to the Bible. The ideal that if you can't find a word in the Bible, then it doesn't exist, like Trinity or like Hebrew Israelite. That is a juvenile concept. And so when we go to the Oxford Companion to the Bible, we turn again and we find an entry for the word hospitality. Again, the word hospitality is never written in the Bible. Yet the concept and the ideal and the model was so important to Bible commentators and scholars that they knew they had to write about hospitality, even though the word is not mentioned in the Bible, but the model and the ideal and the understanding and the theory and the cultural relevancy and significance of the word hospitality must be spoken about. What we're doing is proving that Israel doctrine and his show it to me in the Bible. If you can't show me it to in the Bible, it don't exist. It's bullshit. It is a kindergarten argument, people. Facts. Another book, The Ehrman's Bible Dictionary. Same thing. You look up, you go to hospitality, and it tells you what? It says, see sojourner. But the ideal that the word hospitality is never written in the Bible, but it's important enough that Bible dictionaries and Bible encyclopedias address a word that has no business in the Bible because it's not in there, but the ideal is in the Bible. And so I say to you, Israel doctrine makes the worst argument for not using the phrase Hebrew Israelite. He makes the worst argument. He's looking and trying to prey upon people's ignorance along with his own ignorance. That's all he's doing. People like Israel doctrine, they look back at the ancient people in antiquity and the things they wrote, the things they did, and they began to deify the people. They deify the writings. To deify something, it means you make God of it. It means you make it a holy cow. You cannot question the writings. The writings become sacrosanct. That's what literalists like Israel doctrine do. And while Israel doctrine, he may not dress up in the accoutrement, in the clothing circa 1300 BCE, everything else about him is stuck in a time warp. Who are those people of antiquity whereby we should only call ourselves what they call themselves? Who are they? They were no God. They are not God. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, they were not gods. They were mere mortal men who born of a woman and died and went back to the earth. When they came along, they named themselves what they wanted to name themselves. But we today, we can't make ourselves Hebrew Israelites. We got to follow their tradition, their names, and their titles. Whoever said that bullshit? Whoever said that the people of antiquity wrote down the blueprint for all Jews and all Israelites and all Hebrews forever and ever? Whoever said they had it, the name that they came up with, whoever said it had to be stuck to? Whoever said such a bullshit thing like that? I mean, these motherfuckers was so crazy back in those days. They was forever changing names and shit. Abraham's name used to be Abram. Israel's name used to be Jacob. Daniel's name and his friends, their names were changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. People are forever changing their names. Paul's name used to be Saul. Why do they have the right and the liberty to call themselves what they want to call themselves and change their names like they change their draws? But in the 21st century, we have to abide by what the fuck they call themselves. Am I making any sense? I'm making hella sense to myself. I said there's a history of people in antiquity, in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, changing their names. Yeah. Simon Peter changed his name. People were always changing their names. Changing their names was a thing to do. Excuse me. They didn't look for no permission to change their name. Esau's people became the Edomites. That's what they chose to name them. Canaan's people became the Canaanites. That's what they chose to call themselves. I guess what I'm trying to say is this, people. Every generation of people have the right to name themselves whatever they feel best. And that there's nothing wrong if a person or a group wants to say that they are Hebrew Israelites, that they are acknowledging their first eponymous ancestor, Abraham, and they're acknowledging the father of the 12 tribes, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. I see nothing wrong with that. And going beyond that, here is what I really have a problem with when it comes to people like Israel Doctrine trying to make black people only say Israelite, trying to make Hebrew Israelites only say Israelite. This is my biggest pet peeve. Here is a people on the west coast of Africa once upon a time, some 500 years ago, being robbed from their land, brought to the Americas, stripped of history, culture, language, land, religion, God, name, being stripped down to nothing, being totally annihilated and wiped out as a nation. I'm talking about the so-called black people in America, being stripped down to nothingness, being buried in the earth, being scattered by the four winds. Psalms 83 tells us that the nations got together and they are confederate. And they had one purpose, that the name Israel be no more in remembrance. Let me read it to you. I said Psalms 83, 1 through 5. It says, keep not thou silence, O God, and hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation. Don't let that slide by you. They have taken crafty counsel. The nations have come against Israel. They have taken crafty counsel. They had meetings about this shit. Crafty counsel against thy people Israel. And they have consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, the nations have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. This is supposedly talking about the children of Israel, that the nations of the earth consulted, used crafty counsel, and they had one agenda, and that was to destroy and bury and murder and kill and unalive the nation of Israel, so that there is no more remembrance of it. Cut them up out the land. They would be sojourners in a strange land for 400 years. And in that 400 years, we would be robbed of everything we knew about our former selves. See, Israel Doctrine, he doesn't understand the gravity of the moment in history. He's one of those niggas that he found some shit and he wanted everybody to be on his level. That's not how shit go. There was a time when you was in the strip club letting strippers lick your ass, nigga, when you didn't know shit about who you was. While while you were getting your ass licked, at a P. Diddy party that P. Diddy wasn't even at, I had already come through the whole Hebrew Israelite movement and wrote 6 books, at least 3 books by then. Whole college degree. But Israel doctrine is a classic example of niggas who get the information and they don't know how to disseminate it peacefully in piecemeal. They don't know how to think about how it was when they were blind, deaf, dumb, ignorant, dead, mentally. They don't remember when they didn't have the knowledge. And then they get the knowledge and then they want to beat people upside the head who are in the Hebrew Israelite phase of their lives, who may actually change and become Israelites one day. But because they have stopped calling themselves Hebrew Israelites when they left Brother Bowie's, the Israelite God, now they want to go out and they want to be hardcore and beat everybody up and unaffiliate themselves with other Hebrew Israelites and say they're not my brothers and sisters if they call themselves Hebrew Israelites. Totally forgetting the historicity of the fucking book which they claim they believe in. Having no empathy or sympathy for verses like Psalms 83, 1-5, which tells us that it would be the duty, it would be the undoing of the nation of Israel happened as a result of nations sitting down and having meetings in crafty council and having one agenda, and the agenda is to destroy those people so they wouldn't know who they were. They would be put in a strange land and they would call themselves everything from niggers to niggers to Negroes to coloreds to Balalians to Afro-Americans to black to African American. This is why the so-called black man and woman in America has had so many name changes in nationality, because we're in search of identity, because something happened to us. And if you believe that we are the original people of the book, the original Hebrews, the original Jews, or the original Israelites, then you have to be understanding of the fact that some people aren't where you at. Instead of Israel doctrine taking the beautiful understanding that, my God, after 400 years of being buried, being like the dry bones of Ezekiel, can these bones ever live? And Ezekiel, he saw that bone became bone, and sinew and marrow and blood and skin. These bones began to get up and rise up after being in mental graves of ignorance. Black folk being destroyed of who they were, the original chosen people of God Almighty, the original ancestors of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Israel doctrine, he can't understand that. And that, my God, after 400 years, there are some people in America who are pointing to the Bible and saying that is our book, that is our history. It is our God. We are the people of the book. We are the Hebrews. We are the Israelites. We are the Hebrew Israelites. That's where Israel doctrine should be as a fucking teacher of God. He should be proud to stand upon the fact that these dry bones have arisen and have wakened from their mental graves of ignorance. Motherfuck if they say they Hebrew Israelites. He should be happy that they're on the path to the truth, the path to resurrection, the path back to God, if he believes in that book. That's why Israel doctrine has no followers, people, because he doesn't have the empathy and the sympathy. Not only that, he doesn't understand the Bible's teaching methodology. Even though it's spelled out there right in the book of Isaiah, the 28th chapter. He's a horrible Bible teacher. He doesn't understand how to teach with kindness and gentleness. He doesn't understand that African Americans, that black people, as it relates to the Bible, we are newborn babies. And since the bitch nigga has no children, has never raised a baby from the womb, has never had a child where he had to hold and wipe the baby's butt when they poop and they pee, he's never nurtured a baby that's 1 day old. He's never done that shit. He doesn't know how gentle you have to hold a newborn baby. He doesn't understand that black people, when it comes to this knowledge about being Hebrew Israelites, being Jews, being the chosen people of God, he doesn't understand that black people, we are newborn babies. And if you know anything about a newborn baby, you give them the titty, you give them bottled milk, you let them suck on your finger. If they crawl on the ground and they roll over and they grab your big toe and suck on it, well, that's okay. Gently pull the toe back and find them something to suck on. But the ideal that the newborn babe, they have no teeth. You cannot feed them whole food or solid food. You can't feed them meat. You got to give them that gentle, soft Gerber's baby food. After months of just giving them nothing but liquid milk from mama's breastises or from a Infamil bottle. This is the ideal and the principle that the Bible teaches, that Israel doctrine in his warped teaching doesn't understand. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Isaiah, the 28th chapter. Isaiah, the 28th chapter. This is how you teach people who are just waking up. It tells you here, whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Even got Israel doctrine's name in the goddamn thing. Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. See? Not everybody is meant to teach knowledge. Who shall teach knowledge? Israel doctrine, he's not one to teach knowledge because he doesn't understand how to teach knowledge. And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Israel doctrine, he carries the name doctrine, but he does not know how to make people understand doctrine. Because you got to wean them. You got to wean them from the milk. They start out eating milk, and then after milk, you give them like soft, Gerber baby food, smashed up bananas, applesauce and shit like that. They gotta be drawn from the breast. Precept, learning, teaching. If you want to teach that we're not Hebrew Israelites, but only Israelites, it's got to be precept upon precept. And then precept upon precept. And then line upon line. And then line upon line. And then here a little. And then there a little. I'm the real motherfucking teacher up in here. How dare this ignorant son of a bitch. How dare this arrogant and insolent motherfucker Israel doctrine try to chastise a people whose history, language, culture, religion, mores, God, all that shit was buried for over 400 years. And how dare this bastard Israel doctrine try to make his whole ministry about not saying Hebrew Israelite, only Israelite. It's clear that Israel doctrine does not understand what really happened to the Israelites who came across in slave ships. It's clear that Israel doctrine doesn't grasp the gravity of the shit situation. There's no way Israel Doctrine would make his ministry about condemning Hebrew Israelites for Israelites only if he knew the gravity and the historicity of the people of the book. I have never heard Israel Doctrine quote Psalms 83, 1 through 5. I never heard him quote it. Which makes me believe he already says, he's already admitted he hasn't read the whole Bible. He already says that. But how can he make his ministry about a very minute and minuscule and teeny weeny point? Why does he choose to latch on to making his ministry about not saying Hebrew Israelite and only saying Israelite? In light of Psalms 83, 1 through 5, the story of a people, the Israelites, who were supposed to be buried, left for dead in open graves, never to know who the fuck they were. I just want to know. Psalms 83, 1 through 5 says, "Keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult." That's a loud noise. "And they that hate thee have lifted up the head." Lifted up the head means they started thinking. They were thinking, they had a plot. They were devising a scheme. When they lift up the head, it means they come together and they begin to think of an ideal to destroy these people. "For lo, thine enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people." Not just counsel, but crafty counsel. They had meetings and meetings and meetings upon meeting about how to destroy these people, to make them forget who the fuck they are for all eternity. This is what Israel Doctrine doesn't understand. That's why he has to latch on to bullshit conversations like Hebrew Israelite versus Israelites. Not understanding the brevity and the gravity of what happened to those people. That somebody took crafty counsel against thy people and consulted. That means they had a meeting. They got together and traded ideals, consulted against the hidden ones. The hidden ones are the children of Israel. And after they had a meeting, and after crafty counsel, and after consulting, the Bible says they have said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation." When you cut a people off from being a nation, they have no more remembrance of their history, their culture, their language, their land, their cultural mores, their religions, their deities, their gods. When you cut a people off from being a nation, they don't know who they are. And that's what happened to the children of Israel, who they say came to America. They were cut off from being a nation. How in the fuck then, that it's only been about 100 years since these so-called people who were cut off realized that they were the people of the book? How then, if it's only been a short 100 years of waking up to that revelation, you got a motherfucker like Israel Doctrine harping on names when there's so much more to deal with, to wake up Ezekiel's dry bones, to wake up the nation that people took crafty counsel against. They have said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel," not Israelite, but the name of Israel "may no more be in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. They are united against thee. That's Psalms 83, 1 through 5. A real Israelite teacher, understanding the gravity of the moment and the situation and the time in history. This is a historical epoch we live in. If you want to consider yourself a Hebrew Israelite, the chosen of the Bible, this is history we're dealing with right now. In this great and historical epoch, era, when the people that were buried for 400 years have started to wake up in the last 100 so years, you got a bitch nigga on YouTube thinking that the greatest concern is not saying Hebrew Israelite, making that his ministry, his calling, as opposed to just teaching, yes, people, yes, my black and African American brothers and sisters, you are Hebrew. You are an Israelite. Yes, you are Hebrew Israelite. Yes, you are the people prophesied in Genesis 15:13 and Acts 7:6 that they said would go into a strange land and sojourn for 400 years and be entreated evil. You are that people. That should be the message of Israel doctrine. But that bitch nigga never teaches the history. That bitch nigga never talks about how Titus and Vespasian and all those folks, the Romans, came in and ransacked the temple and tore up Israel, Palestine in the year 70 AD, and how the Israelites had to flee into North Africa and eventually migrated to places like Nigeria and the West Coast, the Ivory Coast. And then the Portuguese and the Europeans and the Jews and the Spaniards, how they came to the west coast of Africa and took those Israelites and brought them here. This bitch nigga Israel doctrine wants to make his ministry about telling people they're wrong for using the words Hebrew Israelite. And so as I close, I'm gonna do a this is my pro. I'm gonna do a against next. Pro and anti. But my anti is gonna be a lot different than what you think. But I say to you, my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters, calling yourself Hebrew Israelites is not going to keep you out of the pearly gates. It's not going to keep you out of New Jerusalem. If there will be a name change from Hebrew Israelite to Israelite, it'll come when the nation comes. It'll come when Yeshua HaMashiach. It'll come when Jesus the Christ. It'll come when the days of New Jerusalem come down from heaven and the 12 tribes are united. Jesus himself will give you a new name, as he says. You may not even say you are a Hebrew or an Israelite or a Jew in that day, because the Bible says, I will give you a new name. Revelations 2:17 says, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh, I will give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth it. And so, whoever said that in New Jerusalem, in the new kingdom, we would call ourselves Hebrew, whoever said in the new kingdom, in New Jerusalem, we would call ourselves Israel or Israelite, whoever said that. The Bible further says that all things will be made new. All things will be made new. And so Israel doctrine, lacking biblical knowledge, lacking the full understanding of what happened to these so-called Israelites who ended up here in America, how they were buried and how nations had a real job, and their job was to destroy them, that they would never know who the fuck they are? When you understand the real historicity of what supposedly, allegedly happened to these so-called blacks and African Americans, why then would you want to make your ministry about a bullshit point of contention over Hebrew Israelite versus Israelite? It's a non-point. It's a bullshit point. Don't let Israel doctrine fool you with his bullshit argument that if you can't find it in the Bible, then it doesn't exist. Again, you can't find airplanes and cars and bicycles in the Bible, but they exist. You can't find the word hospitality in the Bible, but every Bible dictionary and encyclopedia has an entry for a word that's not in the Bible. Same thing with the word Trinity. The ideal, the prescription, the model is in the Bible, in the New Testament, and that's why they gave it a name called Trinity. He's such an elementary and superficial thinker that he has to see a word to know that the ideal and the evidence for it is everywhere present. That's your Bible teacher, a nigga like this? A Bible literalist? And on top of that, check this out. At the end of the day, even though he doesn't want to be called a Hebrew Israelite, he calls himself an Israelite Christian. What an oxymoronic ideal for a man to have. Can you show us the phrase Israelite Christian in the Bible? And the answer would be hell to the no. But you call yourself an Israelite Christian. You see, you got to ride with that conversation all the way or don't fuck with it at all. You can't change what you are. You can't give your own self an identity and label yourself as a Christian, as an Israelite Christian, but other people can't be a Hebrew Israelite. Where they do that at? How'd that work out? And so that's my spiel on being allowed and that it's okay to call oneself a Hebrew Israelite. My God, we were not supposed to know. We were not supposed to know that we were the seed of Abraham. We were not supposed to know that we were Hebrews, Jews, or Israelite. We were not supposed to know that. And for a bitch nigga to come along and just cause 25 years ago he found out who the fuck he was, he wants to take that knowledge and beat and badger people and bring them up to his current level of thinking. That's the worst kind of fucking Bible teacher ever. That doesn't understand even though I don't accept the term Hebrew Israelite, I'm not going to make that a point of contention. I'm not going to haggle over that. Good. I'm glad they understand that they're connected to Abraham. I'm glad they want to say they're Hebrew and they're Israelites. I'm glad. That's what a Bible teacher should do and teach when he understands the 400 years of being buried and the nations trying to make us forget who the fuck we were. That's what you should be teaching, not haggling over a bullshit point of contention. Just because you don't see those two words side by side. But I say again, 2 Corinthians 11:22 is proof enough that you better believe those people were putting those two words together haphazardly and randomly at whim and whenever they wanted. Just because the Bible writers never got around to putting those words together side by side, it doesn't mean that no one ever spoke those words. Don't listen to this bitch nigga, Israel Doctrine. He's mad because he can't get his own bitch, Gwinnetta Greer, to agree with him. He's a fucking pastor without a flock. He's a shepherd without sheep. His church is only on paper. He's jealous of Brother Bowie. He's jealous of the Israel of God. He's jealous of these congregations where people are going there. But he won't look at the methodology in the way in which these people teach kindness and gentleness and no profanity and make people want to join you. People don't want to go to church to hear a motherfucker cursing. When they hear a motherfucker cursing and using the Bible, see, I curse because I'm not trying to get nobody to follow me. I don't want a following. But if you're trying to have a following and you're not trying to be secular, not trying to be worldly, you're trying to be righteous, you're trying to be, holy and pure, you want to be a symbol of God's excellence and his prophetic ideal, then you can't use the language of the streets like that. You can't use profanity. No, profanity is not a sin. Cursing is not a sin. But our people, where they're at today, they think of profanity, they think of cursing as sinful. You can't just come at them with curse words and tell them it ain't a sin and then look at the Bible and do this and come follow me. I told you this nigga doesn't know how to teach a people who come from a Judeo-Christian background. He's fucked up. And that's why his own bitch won't follow him. All right, y'all. To my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters, continue as you were. Call yourself Hebrew Israelites. With that, talk to you later. Peace.